One of the most perplexing mysteries of our time is the ancient megalithic site of Stonehenge. Some believe it to be an ancient computer. Others believe it was a place where the sacred marriage was performed by the giants. Explore with us tonight the mysteries of Stonehenge.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast. Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. Who is able to make war with him?
Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to the Midnight Ride. My great pleasure is always to invite all of you into the Puritan Barn and into the NYSTV studios for the Midnight Ride with myself and John Pounders. Tonight is Stonehenge, a computer of the giants. We're going to be looking at one of the most mysterious sites on this good old flat earth, and we're going to be bringing in scripture and all kinds of material to give us a real insight into what Stonehenge is all about. And we don't have to wait long because we are now
Live. What's up, guys? Good to see you once again in the Puritan Barn. I love seeing where you guys are from in the chat, how you're doing. Let me know that you guys are doing okay. Give me a thumbs up. Hit the like button. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. We talk about subjects like this every week on the Midnight Ride. And, you know, I may be biased, but I don't think there's any other show quite like the Midnight Ride. And, you know, with that being said, David, how's your week been?
It has been fantastic. We're just so thankful for all the Lord's blessings. We're just very thankful.
Yeah, so I wanted to just real quick, before we start this broadcast, I wanted to give a shout out to SpiracyCon, which is a conference that myself and David are going to be at, the Midnight Ride. We're putting it on. Also, Visual Disturbance, Richie from Boston. We have a couple Bigfoot guys from Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization. We also have Scott Carpenter's son, Travis Carpenter, coming. Jillian Stone, her husband, Matt Stone, the Elvis impersonator. And we're actually adding more as time goes on, and it's been really, really cool, some of the people that have reached out to be a part of this, and you guys are going to really enjoy it, so make sure you guys check it out. And tonight, I'm actually going to be announcing the winner of the tickets that we talked about last week, and a lot of you guys went over to the Facebook page and followed it and hit the like button, you shared it, and so Brian is going to be sending me the results, so by the end of this broadcast, we will know who won the two free VIP tickets. And if I'm not mistaken, David, aren't you guys giving away some later on?
Absolutely are. Tomorrow night on our Sunday night live broadcast, that'll be coming on our Underground Church YouTube channel, 7 p.m. Central. And in that broadcast, it's entitled Eagle Over the Vatican. Dan Badandi will be joining Brian and I, and we're going to be assessing what we've able to learn so far from the new Pope. And we will be giving away 2 VIP tickets to ConspiracyCon in the broadcast. So we're just thankful for that. And John, also, that we're going to have a big Sunday tomorrow. You've got you and Dan and Richie from Boston are going to be on before that. Tell us about that, what channel it's going to be on.
Well, it's going to be on both of Richie from Boston's channels, so I don't remember the name of his channels, but if you're familiar with Richie from Boston, you probably at least subscribe to one of those channels. And so me and Dan are going on that. You know, I'm excited. I forgot to mention Dan's going to be a part of the conference as well. I was actually on his broadcast last night debating some guy, and that made my head spin. I gotta say that was a debate that made my head spin. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Those of you that actually went over and watched it. But David, I guess with all of this stuff being said, let's start the midnight ride. Let's do it.
Let's ride. And absolutely, we're excited to be here tonight, and we love to talk about mysteries here on the Midnight Ride, and certainly this is one of the most profound and mysterious sights on this good old flat Earth. And we're going to start off here with some Google Earth imagery, and John is going to take us on a Google Earth tour of Stonehenge in England, and also Conspiracy Con. There is a miniature reproduction of Stonehenge right near the site where we're going to be having the Conspiracy Con, and a part of the VIP package is going to be a tour there where we give a tour and a little mini lecture there on Stonehenge at a reproduction of Stonehenge. You don't get that every day. But John, just go ahead and take us on this Google Earth tour of Stonehenge in England and then in Kentucky, and we're going to be getting an idea of just what we're looking at here.
Well, basically here it is what I got to show you. So this is just a Google Earth image over the top of this. David's going to be showing you more about this in the altar stone, and it's really, really an interesting site. I really would love to go there one day and check it out. This site over here is the one David's talking about that is in Kentucky, and it's a small recreation. So it's small, but if you look at this picture over here on the right, you'll see that I'm standing up against one of these stones. This is how tall it is, and I'm about 6'2", so it's a little bit over double my height there. So really interesting. And mind you too, this is over here is where they have tons of different weird sightings of Sasquatch and all of these random things that are going on. But I took a Google Earth image. But if you look on Google Earth, and if you actually go there, you'll see that they're almost on the same latitude from England over to Kentucky. It's really interesting, and I'm not sure exactly if they're on the same latitude, but they're very, very close.
Now, these are like real stones. They're not plastic reproductions or something.
No, these are real stones.
Really big stones.
Yeah.
And what kind of reports are we getting around this site there in Kentucky?
Well, I know from Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization, this is one of the areas that they're very active in, and that's where people have a lot of sightings. So other than that, I couldn't tell you much more about it. But from the professionals, this is a major site. And obviously there's cave systems that are vast there. Some say that they go all the way around through the United States, one of the biggest cave systems in the world.
Yeah, and it's interesting, we'll be talking tonight on the theories of the portals connected with Stonehenge, and it would make sense even maybe we have a little portal there. It's very fascinating. Now, we're also going to be looking at what is called Israel's Stonehenge, and this is Gilgal Rephaim, and this is located in Israel, and we're going to be showing you a little video here where you can get a visual idea of what we're talking about, and you can watch here a visual overlay. And as you could see here, there are thousands and thousands of stones, and these are not small. And you can see it's a hinge. It's a circle there with a gap in the middle, and everything about these hinges, they are numerically amazing. They are the gematria within these circles. They tell a story that we're going to be unpacking for you this evening. And they're associated with the dancing giants, the dance of the giants in these hinges. And this is also, very interestingly enough, almost the precise location where Elijah was taken up into heaven. And sometimes I just got to preach it the way I feel it. And kind of the way I see this coming down is these guys were there at Gilgal Rephaim trying to open their portal. And here comes Elijah. And the Lord just catches him up in a whirlwind of fire, Sorry about all your hard work there, boys. But this is absolutely amazing. And also another commonality we see with these hinges is the serpent motif. And there is a serpent mound very near here to Gilgal Rephaim, and it's the largest one ever discovered. We know about the serpent mound in Ohio, and this is much larger and much less known about here in Israel. And also we're going to see the serpent motif connected with Avebury, which is just 24 miles from Stonehenge. And what we're going to see here as we examine the hinges in Ireland and England is that they are part of a massive megalithic structure that covered many sites over thousands of acres. And in its day, today it's still impressive, but there is so much there that it is absolutely phenomenal. Now, something else, John, that this is why. Now, here's a picture of a hinge we're going to be talking about. We're going to be looking at several of these. And this is, you can see here, it's in Charleston, West Virginia, and its enclosure is 666 feet in a circuit. And, of course, we don't need any prompting to understand the significance of that. And you can see here they're basically a circular construction, and there's a gap. And the size of the gap and the amount of the length of the circle, everything has meaning. And in the Stonehenge, everything is aligned. And all of these hinges, they are aligned as being a calendar. They predict the eclipses. You can predict the solar eclipses. You can predict the equinoxes and the solstices. It is just amazing what Stonehenge can do. And we're going to be going beyond that tonight in thinking about, well, what might have been the full meal deal? Could it have been a computer for the giants? And we're going to be talking about what some of the other researchers in Stonehenge have said about this. Now, here is another one. This is 24 miles from Stonehenge. And you can see here, this is Avebury. And we see here that there is a hinge, and the whole thing is constructed like it's a huge serpent. And it is just absolutely amazing how large these things are. And we're even going to be taking you this evening to Orkney Island in Scotland, and we're going to be showing you a complex, the Ring of Brodgar. It's so huge that all of Stonehenge would fit inside it nicely, and it's even much larger. And the thing about Stonehenge and the Ring of Brodgar and all of these in the British Isles, they are not all of them are aligned with the luminaries in the second heaven, as above, so below. There's endless alignments and celestial predictions that they can make. And also, they're aligned with one another. The Avebury is aligned with the one at Stonehenge and the Ring of Brodgar. They're huge complexes. I mean, these are so old. And we'll be looking at the Ring of Brodgar, which people believe is older than Stonehenge. And in its day, you can just imagine the ruins of these places are phenomenal after the thousands and thousands of years. So we can not only imagine what they were in their heyday. And we're talking about just not one magnificent site, but a multitude of sites that are interlaced in the way that they relate to one another upon ley lines and to the way that they align with the celestial beings in the second heaven. Now, here is another hinge, and these are taken from On the Trail of the Nephilim, a book by L.A. Marzulli, and this is so fascinating. And it says here, in Lexington, Kentucky, and Charleston, West Virginia, stood hinges that were 555 feet in circumference. 555 was symbolic of the sacred marriage. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Now, this numerically in gematria is the sacred marriage, and here we're going to be looking deeper into that concept. We've talked about the Helios Gamos on several midnight rides. And this could very well be the place where this was where the deed was done. And it's associated with the sacred marriage, these hinges are, and they're associated with the dancing giants. And I also, too, I want to talk just a little more. I briefly referenced this, but on the midnight ride that John did on the underwater phenomenon, he showed there in the water in the Pacific things that look just like this, but they're in the water. And I just caught it last week during the midnight ride. And when I looked at it, man, these are hinges. It's exactly what they are. But just go over that just a bit there for our listeners, John, anyone that didn't see the midnight ride last week.
Man, I wish I had the Google Earth images right now to show you guys, but you're right. They look like these giant versions of what we're looking at here. And I don't know what to make of them, obviously, but I know that at one time they were an active place where they were actually bombing these places. They set off over 100 nuclear weapons there on this one right there in the Pacific Islands, not too far. Well, it's actually kind of right in the middle of the ocean there. And if you guys watch that broadcast, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Most of them are in the Atlantic Ocean, in the Pacific Ocean, but there are a few in the Atlantic as well. And so it's the theories on them, like David's theory. These could be hinges. They could very well be hinges. Some people believe they're volcanoes that sunk in the water and created this thing around them. But the shapes of these things are pretty interesting, and all of them have these gates. That's the thing that makes it, interesting, because these gates are on, I think, almost all of them. I'm not sure about all of them, but it looked like the ones we looked at least there were gates on all of them.
Every one that I saw did, and it was phenomenal with me. I thought, oh my gosh, what am I looking at here? And just look at this one here. There's hinge like this in Lexington and Charleston, West Virginia. And look at that, a 33-foot doorway there. I mean, come on, 33 feet. It is 555 feet in circumference. And guess how tall the Washington Monument is? That's right, 555 feet. These numbers are embedded in these ancient works and these ancient hinges. They're gematria that relate to the interpretation of the ley lines of the sacred marriage. It's phenomenal. It's not accidental. And what we have things in Israel. We have Stonehenge, and we have the Ring of Brodgar, which many people argue is older than the Great Pyramid. We're talking about extremely old antediluvian sites that have commonalities among these hinges all over. And it's just absolutely fascinating. So as we go on, we're going to be getting into the idea of, well, what might they be trying to compute here? But we have here, John is going to show us some of the modern gaming that takes place with Stonehenge. And, we did the broadcast on the wand of the Illuminati, and we tied this in with some of the modern video games. Well, here we go again. So, John, let's see what we got here.
All right, guys. So I hope you enjoy this, because it took me hours to find this footage on this game and record this footage, because this game is huge. It's called Assassin's Creed Valhalla. The only reason I even wanted to record it is because it talks about the Nephilim. There's several hinges in England that they're being discovered here, and you guys are going to see this, but the quotes, when you hear the quotes, you're going to be hearing them from this Saint Brendan, the navigator, supposedly came to America before Columbus, one of the few people to navigate the world. And in the game, he's known as Brendan of Conflert, and he's an Irish monk that lived in the 6th century. So this is highly interesting to me, and I hope that you guys find it interesting as well. Listen to the narrative. I tried not to record too much of this, the gameplay, just the rolling up on the hinges and talking. This one is just called Stonehenge, so check this out.
This is a different sight, one resplendent in a manner unto itself, where his light shines greatest. Today, I was warned of a harrowing depth. After the Nephilim, great battles were fought in resurrective kingdoms of Christ. Many were lost in the fight, many more in the cataclysm that followed. Today, my Lord instructed me in plain words to travel o'er the ocean and seek the door behind which hides his fallen angel. I shall try. In his name, amen. I am Brendan of Ireland, and through light and voice have these stones spoken to me. Here lies the markings of him, where a second voice, higher than most, spoke to me again. Listen to all I have learned through prayer. Long ago was a great and tragic war, the offspring of gods who lived before the deluge. I pray for these rebel angels who came before. I am proud the Lord speaks so cleanly through my soul here in Reconset. He talks of his instruments and asks that I be one. It appears the Nephilim were at battle here long ago. Against a great tempest, some few protected us. We must honor these ancient paths. I have explained what he left for us here, to the Recon dwellers nearby. Blessed be all those who tread in this holy light.
I think this is the last one here.
It is amazing.
I shall inform the local Waffingas that he lives among them through traces of the Nephilim, the giant warriors who fought for God in their ancient time. They have left his presence here on earth for us to absorb his light, the light of angels that have been infused throughout the earth. I feel his power. He calls me my beloved, and I am calmed. I respondeth with my communion, my piety, and become another of his voices.
Well, I guess there's one more here.
Okay, well, that's fine. This is amazing to me.
These are megaliths. But they,
That said Avebury, didn't it?
yes. There's also these wooden ones that I didn't get a chance to find, like Woodhenge. It tells a similar story. But
Here in the Chew Valley, old kings of Wiki still dance with the stones of the Nephilim. I have taught them of the power that sings here. How dare you tamper with these sacred threads, a voice scolded me. You must leave me, he said. Divorced from the Illuminat. His voice waxes and wanes, but a soft song still finds me in my penance. I bend a knee and leave a grain of sand for the old winds.
And there you have it. And is that strange or what? I had to record that. I was like, we're talking about the Stonehenge. I don't know anything about this Brendan of Conflirt, but I definitely believe that we're aligned, or these things are aligned because of the Nephilim.
Well, in that video game, that's just amazing. They have encapsulated all of the lore about Stonehenge that has been consistently believed for thousands of years. We have the dancing giants. This was a place, the circle where the giants danced, and it's associated with portals. It's associated with gates. It's associated with the sacred marriage, and it's also associated with illumination into the spiritual realm. And we're going to be showing later a stone that it's within eyesight of Stonehenge, and this is called the cuckoo stone. And there's a dirt wall that is in proximity to this cuckoo stone, and people describe it like two poles of a battery. And there's a powerful electromagnetic presence there, and people report all kinds of strange experiences in between the cuckoo stone and the dirt wall. But we'll be showing you that also here very briefly. Now, we'll look here. This is in the Anchor Bible Dictionary, and we're going to be looking at their article on the sacred marriage. And this is basically the Genesis 6 scenario where in the earliest account there in Atlantis, that right there in the heart of Atlantis, this is where Poseidon lay with the human female Cleito and began it right all there right in Atlantis. And this same thing is the tradition and all of these hinges of the sacred marriage. This is reflected in all the gematria and in all the symbolism, that right there in the middle, this is where that Helios Gamos took place between the fallen ones and the human women. And I'll read just a little on this Helios Gamos sacred marriage article from the Anchor Bible Dictionary. And it says the term sacred marriage is a translation of the Greek term Helios Gamos, which originally referred to the marriage between Zeus and Hera. It is nowadays applied to marriage or sexual union between a god or a goddess, or as many times we've showed this in the temple in Babylon. We've talked about Alexander the Great, who claimed, his mother claimed that she was impregnated with Alexander in one of those Helios Gamos rituals, and he was a pretty amazing guy, wasn't he? Almost like the heroes and the mighty men of old. But it also says here, the New Year celebration in Isen, according to this hymn, involved the following major events. Various priests and cultic personnel pass before Inanna and pay homage to her. The cult places and roofs are purified, incense is burned, and animal and food offerings are presented there, probably at night, when the goddess is visible as the Venus star. There's always this as above, so below connection between what's going on in these temples and the heavenly luminaries. It says, a bed is set up for the goddess, and she bathes for the ritual. The king goes to the goddess, and they unite on the bed. After the sacred union, the people enter the Egmal temple with their incense and food offerings, and the ceremony ends with a joyful banquet sponsored by the king in honor of the goddess. And this ritual took place in Babylon, it took place in Egypt with just a few variations, and this goes back to the very heart of the lore of Stonehenge, the Helios Gamos. Now, this is a book entitled Stonehenge Decoded by Gerald S. Hawkins, and he was a very astute Stonehenge researcher, and this book was written in the 70s, and it was Mr. Gerald Hawkins that put forth the theory that Stonehenge was designed as a computer by these giants. And I don't know whether he said the giants built it, but he said that it was designed as a computer. And yeah, it would have been, in my mind, the giants that put that together. But we see here, if you just think about it, and already everyone agrees. There's no denying that Stonehenge is a calendar. There's no denying that it predicts celestial events, eclipses, solstices, planetary movements. There's no denying that there's a precise alignment with the heavenly luminaries in the second heaven. So what else besides that were they looking for? These are the obvious things we can conclude, but yet it could have been even more. And I know we did Brian and I, on one of our Sunday night lives, we were looking at the Temple of Karnak, and you can literally, and Brian had a slide, he put up the layout there of a portion of Karnak with the computer board. They look just like computer boards. It's amazing. So, my mind, what were they trying to find? What were they computing, and what were they looking for? Well, we're going to look at a scripture here in the book of Genesis, and I believe they were looking for the same thing at Stonehenge that they were looking here at the Tower of Babel. In Genesis 11:4, and they said, "Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." And, Nimrod wasn't a very nice fella, but he wasn't stupid. And he didn't really believe that he could build a tower so high that he could actually get up to heaven. But he was looking for a portal. In my mind, absolutely, that's what Nimrod was looking for. He was looking for a portal. And I think this is exactly what the folks there at Stonehenge were looking for. It was the dream of the giants to be able to have illegal access into the third heaven. In the story of the Tower of Babel in the book of Jasher, it literally says that their intention was to storm the throne room. They wanted to enter back into the third heaven, and some were so silly they even wanted to try to take on the Creator, and that never ends good for people like that. But in my mind, this makes a tremendous amount of sense. And I would say I believe that what they were looking for at Stonehenge, just like at the Tower of Babel, just like at CERN, they were looking for portals.
I agree. In the scriptures, it makes it real clear that they searched out long and hard for the place that they put it. They didn't just plop it anywhere. They saw Shinar to be the best spot for this. And we can only speculate as to why they thought that, but we're starting to see weird things right now in the world that make you wonder why they're setting up bases where they're setting up bases. For instance, a place like Skinwalker Ranch is really interesting because you have what most people are saying are for sure portals. I mean, this is what everybody I've talked to, even talking to people that worked at Skinwalker Ranch and were on the show, they don't really understand what it is. They believe that it's 100% spiritual, but also 100% physical because it's causing them some damage, and there's things that are actually taking place at these places. And if you've noticed that almost all of the intelligence agencies, all of these military agencies have all had their hand in on this location, and I don't think that there's any coincidence there. They probably know there might be a spot where this allotments for the angelic beings to come to and fro might be taking place. The book of Enoch talks about places that are like that.
It absolutely does. And very soon, I'll let John confirm that, but a fellow Mr. T. Carp, the son of Travis Carpenter, is going to be a guest here very soon on the Midnight Ride. Yeah. And we did Brian did an interview with him that aired on Visual Disturbance and on EPO-JC Radio. And I tell you what, there was a picture that he showed from one of his father's books, an actual photograph of a Bigfoot coming through a portal. It's amazing. I mean, it's stunning. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And this is exactly what people at Skinwalker Ranch say. This is the consensus of the Bigfoot investigators, that we're dealing with something. It's a Nephilim brood. It's coming through portals. And that picture's phenomenal. Yeah, it is really phenomenal. And
it wasn't long after that, too, that Scott became... died. It was really shortly after that, and I know that weird things were happening at that point. Another thing that was interesting about all this, David, we're talking about Nephilim here. Him and David Paladines, I believe is how you pronounce his name, the guy that does the Missing 411, were partnered together to gather DNA and hair samples from these entities, and they did, and they got back the DNA. The DNA of these entities was female, but unknown male nucleotide. So the DNA from the male was unknown. So lead them to believe, I guess it was Nephilim. This is one of the videos that I watched of Scott Carpenter talking about this, and he did say that right after that he started having the craziest paranormal stuff going on at his house, and he was able to rebuke it in the name of Jesus, and it would leave. But this is interesting because it is associated with paranormal as well. There might be physical things attached to it, but there's definitely a paranormal aspect to all of this.
And just like John said, around the Stonehenge in Kentucky, where we'll be holding right near where we'll be holding our Conspiracy conference in August. All kinds of UFOs, crypto creatures. The same thing in around Stonehenge in England. My goodness, we've got crypto creatures, we've got crop circles, we've got it all going on there. And the idea, there's everything pointing toward the fact that these places are portals. And a scripture here, and we showed the footage earlier of Gilgal Rephaim and maybe the millions of stones, all of these stones that have been there for thousands and thousands of years, all the way back to the time of the prophet Elijah. And as I mentioned earlier, this was just about the exact spot where Elijah would have been taken up in a whirlwind. And let's just read this in 2 Kings. It says, "And Elijah took his mantle and wrapped it together and smote the waters, and they were divided hither and thither, so that the two went over on dry ground. And it came to pass, when they were gone over, that Elijah said unto Elisha, Ask what I shall do for thee before I be taken away from thee. And Elisha said, I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me. And he said, Thou hast asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be so unto thee. But if not, it shall not be so." He had to be there. He had to be at the exact place at Gilgal Rephaim. And if he wasn't there, you don't get it, because there was a little something special coming through the portal there that day. Yeah. And verse 11, "And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven." And this took place right there by this megalithic site of Gilgal of Rephaim. Now, this is a gentleman by the name of William Stukeley, 1687 to 1765. And in 1719, he visited Stonehenge and did a lot of study and a lot of research and a lot of writing on Stonehenge. And he was credited with, and of course, he didn't begin it, but he popularized it. And I'm going to read a little excerpt here from Solving Stonehenge by Anthony Johnson. We're going to be looking at some other things in this book, Lord willing, before we're done. But he said, like many intellectuals of his day, including his friend Sir Isaac Newton, Stukeley was convinced that the ancient world once possessed a body of knowledge which had been lost and corrupted down the ages. The key to these esoteric lost truths could now be added the enigmatic monuments which were beginning to be regarded as expressions of this knowledge. Stonehenge thus found itself at the forefront of this movement as an archetype for all then known human history and inexorably linked with an emerging sense of national identity. And this really, and the guy's spot on. I mean, this is something that we have firmly believed all throughout our work we've done on the Midnight Ride. And he really put it on the table and said, hey, folks, look at this. This thing is more than just some neatly arranged rocks. There are things here that hold keys to antediluvian knowledge and mysteries. And the more we look at these things, the more we begin to understand and let the mysteries begin to be peeled back. And then when we bring in the Word of God, we can start to get a pretty good picture of just what we've got going on here. Now, I referenced this earlier. This is called the Cuckoo Stone, and you can actually see this from Stonehenge. It's a ways off, but it's right there within eyesight, and it has now fallen over. At one time, it would have stood upright there, and within the proximity of this cuckoo stone, there is a dirt wall. And there's something about, and here's just one of the other mysteries how this works, but between the dirt wall and the cuckoo stone, people go there every year, and there's all kinds of reports of mysterious electromagnetic fields. There are people that hear voices and have visions within this. And this is another one of these mysterious things that associated with these hinges. They're associated with the entering into the spiritual realm, and I wouldn't advise that. You know, I'm not saying, boy, go to the cuckoo stone, get a revelation. That's not the way we hear from God. But it's a fact that there have been many, many people report this, and it's just another one of the real mysteries that we see about these megalithic sites. And basically, the only way we can understand this is to say, well, yeah, in reality, there's a combination of earth forces, ley lines, celestial alignments, and electromagnetic fields that produce these things. And through the study of the ancient ley lines and just knowledge we don't have anymore, they were able to precisely place and construct these things in a way that hold mysteries that we're still peeling back. Now, this is the book I referenced earlier, Solving Stonehenge. And this here is a really good book. There's a lot of information in this. And there's a couple things here that I want to talk about that relate to the early stories about Stonehenge. And it says here, and I want to read here from just a little bit from page 38. And it's amazing the stories that were believed from antiquity. And Geoffrey, the fellow's name here, Geoffrey of Monmouth or Monmouth. And this goes back to the Templar times in 1129 A.D. when he studied and wrote about Stonehenge. And just listen to what this old boy had to say. This is here from this book, Solving Stonehenge. But Merlin, the magician, was one of the characters here around Stonehenge, according to Geoffrey. And in his writings, Mr. Geoffrey claimed that Merlin had these instructions, that he was to send for the giant's round or dance, chorea gigantu, like choreograph, which is in Calaris, a mountain in Ireland. For there is a structure of stones there which none of this age could raise without a profound knowledge of the mechanical arts. They are stones of vast magnitude and wonderful quality. If they can be placed here, as they are there, quite round this spot of ground, they will stand forever. Many years ago, the giants transported them from the remotest confines of Africa and set them up in Ireland at a time when they inhabited that country. Their plan was that whenever they fell ill, baths should be prepared at the foot of the stones, and they used to pour water over them and run this water into baths in which their sick were cured. What is more, they mixed the water with herbal concoctions and so healed their wounds. There is not a single stone among them which hasn't some medicinal value. And Mr. Geoffrey weaves the history of Stonehenge. It weaves in with King Arthur, with Merlin, the Holy Grail. And it is just amazing that it talks here about the dance of the giants, and it talks about these stones coming from Ireland. And we're going to be showing you one of these amazing hinges, much larger than Stonehenge, called the Ring of Brodgar, where all of these same things, same kind of stones. We've got the whole thing there that's always incorporated among the study and the traditions of these hinges. Now, one more thing here that is going to segue into our comparison here with Göbekli Tepe. It says here on page 105, there is evidence to suggest that bulls' heads, the skulls of oxen, have been found in the center of Stonehenge on more than one occasion. And we've talked a lot of the different worship of the bull. We've talked about how the planet Venus was associated with Lucifer, and the very movement of Venus, when they would draw a star chart, it would literally it would look like a helmet with horns on it. And this is why the Vikings wore the horns. This is where the tradition of the devil having horns comes from. And this was all associated with the worship of the bull and the worship of the head. Heads of bulls and heads of human beings have been used in ancient rituals as long as they've had ancient rituals. And I'll read here from a book entitled Denisovan Origins, and there you can see Göbekli Tepe. Let's just go back and look at this for just a moment. We did an entire Sunday Night Live on this site also, Brian and I did. It's absolutely fascinating, and this is very near the proximity of where Noah's Ark would have landed. It's very near where a lot of people believe was the heart there of the Garden of Eden. So much there associated with Göbekli Tepe. And one of the commonalities it has with Stonehenge is the worship of the head. And I'll read a little bit here from a book called Denisovan Origins. This is by Andrew Collins. And chapter 3 in this book is entitled The Cult of the Skull. And he wrote, in 2017, it was announced that excavators at Göbekli Tepe had unearthed fragments of 3 human skulls that had been deliberately modified for use in what can only be described as a cult of the skull. Arguably one of the earliest manifestations anywhere in the world. One cranial fragment has a deep vertical groove from front to back. Another has a hole bored through it, one of 2 such holes, allowing the skull to be hung on a cord. Skull on a rope, huh? While a third fragment has undeniable defleshing marks suggesting the scalp was removed post-mortem. These and other indications of enhancement make it clear that the skulls were featured in ritualistic practices soon after the site's foundation. 9,600 BC is the date there that they give. But it's amazing, the whole motif of the worship of the skull is huge. The tradition in South America of the crystal skulls, this is just absolutely amazing. And the whole motif of the crystal skull, this segues over also into modern pop culture, where we see Indiana Jones and the crystal skulls, don't we? We remember that one. So this whole worship of the head is one of the ancient commonalities, human heads, animal heads. And there's another little head we can talk about here that goes back to the occult practices, but this is in the History of Magic of Eliphas Levi. And in this book, Mr. Levi talks about the worship of the head of the Baphomet. And Mr. Levi writes here, and he's the guy that actually created the drawing of Baphomet. It was originally a wood carving. And this is the guy that should know what was going on with it. But he writes here on page 211, he said concerning the Templars that they even went so far as to recognize the pantheistic symbol of the Grand Masters of Black Magic, and the better to isolate themselves from obedience to a religion by which they were condemned beforehand. They rendered divine honors to the monstrous idol Baphomet. He says that the Baphomet head is a beautiful allegory which attributes to thought alone the first and creative cause. And these heads and the worship of the head, it goes back to a twisted concept of worshiping these things as the creator God. And this takes us back to the origins of idolatry, and it takes us back to the origins of what we would call Luciferian theology. But John, what are your thoughts there before we go to the Ring of Brodgar?
It's something that I feel like only Satan could dream up. You know, this
Yeah.
is something. It's horrific to
Yeah.
think that they did these things, and that the worst part about it, I think, is that we know that they still do. We're starting to see that. We've been talking about it for a long time, and I think we were ahead of our time on exposing a lot of these things, that rituals and such. But now it's been a mainstream effort to expose all of these things. And people are just now starting to see that these practices really never stopped. And that's the thing that's alarming to me. And it reminds me of also the drinking from the skull rituals that the Scythians, I believe, used to do, and other people as well, right, David?
Yeah, and this is carried on in Freemasonry. In the York Rite of Freemasonry, they will drink wine from a human skull. And while you're drinking wine from the human skull, the head dude there, he'll hold a sword to your throat just so you make sure you get the message. But yeah, this is bad stuff. And here again, in Freemasonry, we see the tie-in with the skull worship and the false communion. And this was also associated with all of these sites, the pagan rituals of the false communion and these food sacrifice to idols. All of these things, we see these commonalities incorporated into all of these sites. Now, we have here something I've mentioned. This is just amazing. It's called the Ring of Brodgar. And we find this in Scotland on the Isle of Orkney. And it's another hinge, and it's so large that the entire complex of Stonehenge could fit within this Ring of Brodgar. And the same thing that we said pertaining to Stonehenge is true of this, that you can start here at Brodgar and you just can go out to other megalithic sites. And according to the original traditions of Stonehenge from Gregory of Monmouth, he said that magicians brought the stones from Africa to Ireland, which would be a different site than this. And I don't know, I can't confirm a megalithic site where this would have been. But they're in Ireland. They're all over the British Isles. It was a huge megalithic civilization that we're looking at here. And this is just another one of the absolutely amazing hinges that are still for us to look and study and to marvel at. And here we see, this is just really stunning to me. And this is a picture of the summer solstice at the Ring of Brodgar. And you can see here the precise alignments where they knew how to look at a stone. They would have a central altar stone, and you could get there, and every stone you looked at would represent a certain motions in the heaven that would align with the planetary alignment. Very, very complex, and it's amazing how that they could do this. And Stonehenge, it was so much more. It was a calendar. They could predict all kinds of celestial events. And I think even more than that, I think Mr. Hawkins was right. I think it was a computer, and they were looking for portals. I absolutely believe that. Now, this is another very, very interesting layer to the onion. This is in New Hampshire. This is called America's Stonehenge. And I know that Dan visited this, and he did a complete little broadcast from America's Stonehenge there. Now, what's also one of the many, many interesting things is that the America's Stonehenge, and they call it Mystery Hill, New Hampshire, it's aligned precisely with the Stonehenge in England. And National Geographic even pointed this out in one of their issues. So, and I don't know for sure if it's aligned with the one in Kentucky too, but you can bet it is. You just, after a while, you just know how these things are. And these are the original ley lines of how they run. And I have a book here entitled America BC by Barry Fell, who was a Harvard professor in the 70s, and don't hold that against him. He was pretty sharp fella, and he did studies there on this site. And the conclusion he come to, and yeah, we can just about figure it out before we read it, but he says here on page 92 of his book the antiquity of Mystery Hill inscriptions could now be confidently set at 800 to 600 BC by judging the writing style of the associated Phoenician inscriptions. They found documented Phoenician writings here that go back, they estimate, 800 to 600 BC. And so, I mean, this is proof that there were people that were traveling over the ocean way before the modern schools are going to admit to you they did. They had, we're looking here at more proof that there was an ancient civilization and even an antediluvian one that had worldwide abilities of travel, communication, weaponry. And it's just a fact, Jack. We got Phoenician letters here at New Hampshire that are way before the time of Christ, and even more than that. He says it was clear that Goidelic Celts were the occupants at that date. The Celtic people were here in America over between 500 to 800 BC. Now, this is just absolutely amazing, and we have to reevaluate what we've been told about the Celtic people. And of course, at Stonehenge, it is the Druids. That's right. The Druids at Stonehenge, they are the ones that are associated there. And we're going to be giving you even more ancient history of the Druidic people and how they relate to the Word of God. And what we're looking at here is something that is another one of the really interesting things here at Stonehenge. And this is the altar stone. And here at the altar stone here in the middle of Stonehenge, this is where Druids for thousands of years and even to this day, they hold their rituals here at Stonehenge. And the common opinion of all researchers throughout the many hundreds and even thousands of years is that this was a ritual stone of human sacrifice here at the altar stone in Stonehenge. And when we study the Celtic people and the Druids, they are the priestly class that came out of the Celtic people who were also known as the Gauls. And like I say, we're going to give you a little more detailed history there. But what we're looking at here is the evidence and the tradition of human sacrifice here at Stonehenge and among the mystery religion cults. And we're going to be looking at here another one of these firmly established traditions. We all know about the Wicker Man, don't we? The Wicker Man, which has been celebrated in movies that we've seen. And this is a Celtic Druidic ritual of human sacrifice. And this is just pretty wild stuff. And of course, we all know about this. And the traditions of human sacrifice are as deeply interwoven with Stonehenge as these little weaving here of this Wicker Man. But we have a little video here for you. Yes, we do. We have a little video about the Wicker Man and Beltane festivals. So we're going to take a look at this, at the way that this is still celebrated to this day in Britain and in many places of the earth. Take a look.
David, do you want the audio playing too? Because I can play the audio. This they're beating drums and
yeah, we could. The audio, right. I think, would be good on this.
All right, let's do it.
Premium shots coming there.
I remember him.
Just special.
Well, boy, that's something, isn't it? What comes to your mind when you watch something like this, John?
Well, it's amazing to me that these practices are still, held so dear. I don't know. When I see that, it looks like most of the people there probably have no idea what this actually means, but there's definitely that element that does. You have to wonder how many of those people that are there have any knowledge of even any of this stuff, if they're just there to have a good time, get drunk, and possibly partake in some spirit activity or what. I don't know, but it just obviously, the Burning Man celebration just reminds me of burning a giant. There's some kind of giant being burnt to the ground, and I don't know. I'm sure you have more insight than I do on this.
Well, what comes to my mind is in the Bible it talks about the drums of Tophet, where they would play the drums in the worship of Moloch to drown out the screams of the children that were being sacrificed to Moloch. And boy, here we see the drums, a lot of drums, beating them drums. Yeah. And I'm sure there are a lot of people there that they're just looking to get drunk and have a good time. What's going on this week? Well, let's go get loaded and burn the man. But the people that are really into this Celtic religion, and there's a lot of people that take this so seriously. The Druids are a tremendously powerful and influential brand of the occult. They very well know that they're celebrating and rejoicing in a human sacrifice ritual. And that's frightening to me.
My question is, I wonder if during, like you said, the drums drowning out, I remember hearing about that in Carthage when they would, the elites there in Carthage, instead of sacrificing their own children, they would buy them from the poor people sometimes, and the mothers weren't allowed to cry, and if they did, they would just beat the drums to be louder. I wonder if during that there's actually a human sacrifice going on somewhere in the distance that nobody would ever know about because they're too busy just out there having fun, like you said.
Now, there's an interesting history behind Carthage, and in the Bible, we're told that Lot impregnated two of his daughters, and it produced the people of Ammon and Moab. And Moab worshipped Shamash, and Ammon worshipped Moloch. And the priests of Moloch and Shamash were called the Chemarim. And what that word means is stained black. And they would wear black robes. This is where the black robes came from, because you get dirty, you get them fires going, burn them children, you're going to get the dirt and the soot all over you. So they were the black-robed Chemarim. And Carchemish was settled by the people of Ammon, and it literally gets its name from the Chemarim, this priesthood. So there's an amazing connection there with Carchemish and this ancient priesthood of the Chemarim. Now, in the Bible, Galatians chapter 4, and we lay a lot of emphasis here on observing God's holidays and not observing Satan's holidays, and that's what you just had a visual picture of, an actual celebration of a satanic holiday. Now, something that has changed, there's been so much changed for the bad from the theological cemeteries, and if you go back on any commentary on the book of Galatians that would have been written from the 1800s, from 1875 or earlier, everyone would have told you that the Gallic people in Galatians, they were the Gauls. They were the people that were the Druids, were the priestly class of the Gallic people. But now, because of one inscription that was found in like 1880, they have totally changed, and every modern commentary, they will discuss the northern and the southern Galatian hypothesis. And the bottom line is all the modern commentaries are divorcing the epistle of Galatians from the Gallic people. This is just a total reverse in the scholarship of the Bible that has existed ever since the book of Galatians was studied up until about 1875. So now, people that go to these theological cemeteries, that's just an example of the garbage that's pumped into their head. But let's read what the Bible says. And this is exactly what's talking about of that which we witness. It says, "Howbeit then, when ye knew not God, ye did service unto them which by nature are no gods." Now today, this is interpreted of talking to the Hebrew people. Well, when I teach this, I said, everyone just say the Gauls were not Hebrews. They were not Hebrews. They were the Gallic people. And it's talking about the gods that these Gallic people served before they were converted. But now, after that ye have known God, or rather are known of God, how turn ye again to the weak and beggarly elements, stoichion, whereunto ye desire to be in bondage? Ye observe days and months and times and years. I am afraid of you, lest I have bestowed labor, but I have bestowed upon you labor in vain. Paul was so concerned that he thought these people had totally apostatized when they could go back and partake in these pagan rituals. The Bible makes a big deal out of pagan holidays. That's why we do too. Now, this is a book by Stephen Quayle. It's called Genesis 6 Giants. And we'll read here just a little bit to get a background of a little more history on the Gallic people. We'll read a little starting here on page 214. It says, most accounts of the Celts include references to the giants that were often found among them. The ancient Greek historian Pausanias called them the world's tallest people. Modern historian Gerhard Herm agrees that the Celts were blond giants who struck terror in the hearts of every foe, even in the mightiest of Rome. Although the Romans would eventually devise methods of defeating these giant warriors, attacking long legs that couldn't be guarded by the massive shields these creatures carried. The blonde-eyed blonde giants inspired terror among those facing them in battle for the first time. And this was kudos to Julius Caesar. And what he did, he just told the guys to just get down, take them Roman broadswords, and when they come up, just to come in low and hack their legs with those Roman broadswords. And that was the tactic that Caesar used to defeat these Gauls. And before they come up with that, they were just totally thumping the Romans. But it's really, there's a lot of writing on the Gallic Wars and Caesar. And he goes on to say, he says, of course, not all Celts were giants. It says the tall, fair-haired, blue-eyed warriors described by classical writers were probably a ruling class thinly spread over indigenous populations. Thus, like giants in other cultures, these Nephilim ruled over ordinary men as god-like kings. The average-sized giants among the Celts probably towered no more than a foot above ordinary men, but within the ranks of giants were some monsters who rose to a gigantic stature even by modern standards. So this is just a little understanding of what we're talking about, and these come down from Gomer. They called them the Gomerian giants, and they come from the line of Japheth. And we'll look here at the Golden Bough. And this is another big tie-in to the modern worship of the pagan holidays. And I'll read just a little bit from the Golden Bough to just get a little more of a picture of what really goes on in these rituals. And it says here, this is on page 405 in the Golden Bough. It says here, the great spring festival of Sabel and Attis. It says the arch-Gaullus, and of course the high priest was called the Galli. The high priest of the Gauls was called the Gali and the arch Gallus. He was the big dog daddy. It says the arch Gallus, or high priest, drew blood from his arms and presented it as an offering. Nor was he alone in making this bloody sacrifice. Stirred by the wild, barbaric music of clashing cymbals, rumbling drums, droning horns, and screaming flutes, the inferior clergy whirled about in the dance with waggling heads and streaming hair until, wrapped into a frenzy of excitement and insensible to pain, they gashed their bodies with potsherds or slashed them with knives in order to bespatter the altar of the sacred tree with their flowing blood. The ghastly rite probably formed part of the mourning for Attis, and may have been intended to strengthen him for resurrection. It was the same day of blood, and for the same purpose, that the novices sacrificed their virility. And literally, these priests of Attis would emasculate themselves and fling their manhood upon the tree. That's where the red and green Christmas colors come from, by the way. No extra charge for that. We'll look here also at man, myth, and magic, and we'll make another connection here. Here on man, myth, and magic, it says here that, speaking of Stonehenge, it says the top stone circle probably associated with the Druids near Keswick in Cumberland. It says these monuments connected with prehistoric burials have also become part of the Druid legend. It says some classical writers believe that Stonehenge was a temple to Apollo, the sun god. And I come upon that a lot as I was reading these ancient traditions. And when we get to Apollo, we've talked about the Tuatha De Danann and the stories that connect them with Hyperborea and with the worship of Apollo. And here we're tying in with something that gets into a very prophetic feel. It talks about the Apollo in Revelation 9:11. It says, and they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. And the root word that Apollyon comes from, of course, this is where we get the god Apollo. This is translated in 2 Thessalonians 2:4. It says, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is worshipped, or that is worshipped, so that he is God, since in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And the word perdition in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 comes from the same root word, apollomai. And here we have a very direct connection between the worship of Apollo and the final beast that's going to rise out of the bottomless pit. And when we think about all of the connections with the giants and the portals and the rituals that they do, I think that these sites literally are trying to raise these entities out of the pit, bring them through the portals. And as we go forward and as we witness the events of the last days take place before our very eyes, this is something that would be good for us to keep in mind, the role that these megalithic sites are going to play in the spiritual realm.
Awesome, David. Very good. Very good. I actually requested this broadcast on Stonehenge, so I'm very grateful that you did it. It's something that I've been fascinated with for a long time, and of course, a lot of people have. This is, goes way, way back, this fascination with these ancient structures. And all of us that are alive have some sort of paganism in our blood. It goes back far enough. If you look back far enough, maybe not everybody, but most of us do. Even the Hebrews many times worship Baal and all of those things. And this is something that we should be aware of, and that is constantly trying to infiltrate itself into our everyday lives. Once again, it's always trying to feed back in, as David talked about earlier, in holidays and different things. So thank you guys so much for listening. I wanted to announce the winner of the 2 VIP tickets And in order to do this, they had to go over to the SpiracyCon Facebook page, which still go to that because we're going to be giving away 2 regular tickets as well sometime down the future. So make sure you guys are on that page so you can see when that happens. Unfortunately, Facebook doesn't really throttle their bots, and so as soon as we did it, there was bots on there trying to scam people on Facebook. So we're going to announce them here so that we don't have that same situation going on. So we narrowed it down, and our choice for this was Casey Buttress. You commented on the Facebook page and you said that it was your and your husband's wedding anniversary, and here, happy anniversary. There's your ticket. So what you need to do in order to claim those is go to the SpiracyCon Facebook page and message through the Facebook Messenger, and then you can have to fill out the proper information to receive your free tickets there. So congratulations, Casey, and I hope to see you, and it's going to be awesome. So thank you guys for that. Make sure you guys check that out. Also, I want to say this. We are not monetized on YouTube, and we are ad-free, and we want to stay that way. So make sure to support what we do. Also support over on FOJC. We are ad-free. Look, channels the size of our channel that are doing ads are doing $15,000 to $20,000 per month in advertisement. And that's how much they pay. They pay channels as big as ours, but we want to keep it ad-free, and we want to be able to say what we want to say. So we need you guys to continue to support so we can continue doing it at the level that we're doing it. We appreciate what you guys are doing. Make sure you hit the like button. David, let's do the Pounders Pounder. Is there anything you want to say before we do that?
Well, no, let's go ahead. Let's do the pound.
All right, here we go, guys. On the count of 3, we're going to take the like button and we're going to smash it until we see the algorithm just increase and blow up here. Are you guys ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Boom.
Thank you guys so much for that. David, end us out.
Well, and I want to say, too, echo what John said at FOJC Radio. We've never been monetized. That's by our choice. And we are listener-supported, and we are just so thankful for all of you that do feel led to do that. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for supporting the Midnight Ride, Now You See TV. We couldn't do what we do without you. Thank you so very much. And with that, until next Saturday night, 10 p.m. Central, a big high five and good night, everybody, from the Midnight Ride.
I switched it to the wrong screen. Here you guys go from the Midnight Ride. Here we go. Sorry.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up, rise up, rise up.